Today, we are once again joined by the Chancellor of DC Public Schools, Dr. Louis Farabee, who will be providing an update on DC Public Schools COVID protocols. This is the first in a monthly series of updates on this subject, so please be sure to follow along to have your questions answered. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone that if you would like to ask a question at any time during the call, you can press 0 and you will be added into our speaker queue. And now I would like to turn it over to Chancellor Farabee.
Good evening. I am Louis Farabee, Chancellor for the District of Columbia Public Schools, and excited to be with you this evening to share more information about how we've enhanced our screening protocols and also our testing protocols for both students and staff. And here this evening I have a few of our staff members to help highlight some of those points that we will be sharing this evening. I am joined by Dr. Brent Elliott, who leads our student supports work, which includes our health services team. I'm also here this evening with Jessica Jennings, who leads our communications work. Tonight, again, we'll share more about our enhanced protocols for screening and testing protocol, and reminding everyone that we are still continuing a layered approach to all of our COVID responses to ensure that we mitigate the transmission of COVID in our schools. So in the next slide, we just want to remind everyone that we are maintaining health and safety in our school with a very strong layered approach to ensure that we mitigate the transmission of COVID in our schools. And that is one, preventing transmission, and then screening protocols, and then also keeping our school community informed anytime there is a positive case in our school building, whether it be a staff member or student. On the slide, you see an illustration of this layered approach, which includes cleaning, our HVAC enhancement, hand washing, face coverings, increased community access to testing, and that is the highlight of this evening. We're going to share a little bit more about how we are enhancing our testing protocols and how screening has been elevated. And so as we go to the next slide, I want to just highlight a few of the efforts most recently that DCPS has announced and that's underway or in planning at this time. The first is our safe to return testing protocols. So after the winter break, we require every student to produce a negative test before returning back to campus. We also require every staff member to also produce a negative test before returning back to campus. We will have a similar protocol throughout the school year when we have large breaks for approximately a week or more. So the next time period that we'll have a safe to return testing protocol will be from February recess, and then we'll also have the same protocol in place when students and staff return from spring break in April. We've also added an additional layer of testing with our antigen-based kits for our youngest learners who are not eligible for the vaccine. And they're also participating in a weekly testing protocol with those antigen-based kits. Those kits are going home on Fridays, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. And then finally, we are issuing test kits to families and staff on our mail kit distribution protocol as well. And this is important for individuals that are close contacts. They can also request testing kits as well. On this slide, you can see just a highlight of the electronic database that we use for families to upload their results for our test return protocol. Again, we'll send kits home with students prior to the break, so we know we had a distribution before school started for students after winter break. We're anticipating for February recess and also for spring break that we will have distribution for students before they go home for the break, and then we'll be asking them to take the test the day 24 hours before they return. You can also see the iHealth antigen-based kit that students have received and will continue to receive. And a reminder to families, it takes about 15 minutes to administer the test, and it must be done so at home. So again, we're reminding families to help us out as we get closer to the February and April instructional breaks. Go to the next slide. We have some key data points I just want to lift up that we're really excited about. We're pleased that our families were very diligent and collaborative in helping us get these tests out. You can see some of the data points that are represented here on the slide. For example, the number of positives, for both students and staff. But we're really pleased that we had over 49,000 individuals participate in our testing protocol and students returning back from winter break, which is outstanding. And give you a flavor for where we are with our pre-K testing, we had close to 4,000 students upload results for pre-K testing. So again, this represents strong implementation of these protocols and allow us to screen, and anytime there's a positive from any of these tests, we ask that families report it immediately so we can follow our close contact protocol. We, in addition to the testing efforts, have established a new distribution of KN95 masks to all staff, and we're providing extra masks to schools for students as well. And there'll be a regular distribution of these masks to ensure that students and staff have access accordingly. We'll go to the next slide. I want to share a little bit more in detail about what families should expect for our weekly testing protocol for our youngest learners. So this is required for those students that are in pre-K 3 and pre-K 4 to produce a negative test each Sunday evening before returning to school on Monday. We do give families in kindergarten the option of testing and uploading results as well. But we're again asking families to administer the test on Sunday evening. Families that have access to other testing tools via PCR test or another over-the-counter test are welcome to utilize those as well. But we do ask that families upload those results, share those results with us on Sunday evening so we're prepared to execute on any close contact evaluations that we need to do or any changes to operation. We started this protocol in the month of January, and we are very appreciative that we've had 2 successful Sunday evenings where we've had enormous participation from our families in the testing protocols for our youngest learners. Here is an example of a step-by-step calendar illustration of what happens in schools, particularly if there's a positive case. This is an additional enhancement that we've added this week. So for example, if there is a positive in a class from the Sunday test, we will allow those students that have tested negative on Sunday to return to school on Monday. And then there will be a screening of all students visually on Monday by a health professional that is trained to identify symptoms. And then a trained health professional will also administer a rapid antigen test to all students in that classroom on Tuesday as well. If there are any positives from that testing on Tuesday, we will ensure that any positive students are isolated accordingly, and then we'll repeat another cadence of testing as well for those students. But the idea here, as noted in the title of the pilot, is to ensure that we keep our youngest learners in the classroom knowing that those students in those age levels are not eligible for the vaccine at this time. We know that it's important that families continue to get vaccinated, and we're also encouraging families to get boosters as well for those that are eligible for boosters. We go to the next slide. We've also established a mail home kit protocol for families where they can notify us anytime that they're close contact, and then they can request kits of the tests that go directly home to families. And these are also PCR tests. I just want to highlight the types of tests that are administered in this scenario. So I'll stop here and ask Dr. Elliott to give any additional context that I may have not included in the testing protocols that we have administered thus far.
Thank you, Chancellor, and you are spot on, and we're again happy to announce these new mail home programs. So for any student or staff member that has been identified as a close contact in a positive case, you're going to be able, as part of the letter you'll receive, you'll have a link where you're able to click on that link and request that 2 Covit PCR tests are mailed to your home. Your first test you should administer within the, about 48 hours of being identified as a close contact, and then the second test can be administered a bit later, after day 5 of the quarantine, and it gives you an opportunity actually to be able to return to school early. The second program that we're excited today to announce is mail home tests for our staff as well. So any staff member in DC Public Schools, school-based staff members are also able to participate in weekly asymptomatic testing, and that is a mail home program as well. Also, as part of our testing regimen, we are continuing asymptomatic testing at our school sites. So currently each week, all 116 campuses conduct asymptomatic testing on site with a testing goal of testing about 20% of our student population, so somewhere close to about 10,000 students. I'm really excited. Many of our schools are testing a little bit above that rate, and others are continuing to grow their numbers, and it gives us a great sense of the health of our school community. So doing symptomatic testing, asymptomatic testing, these in combination help us to keep our schools safe. And then finally, I want to speak to another measure that we use to, as part of our whole list of measures to keep our schools safe, and that is the use of daily screenings. So daily, we continue to ask, and this is next slide, please. We continue to ask our families before your students leave for school in the morning, that you conduct the ask, look. So you are certainly asking your student or looking to see if your child has any COVID symptoms. 2, you are, being aware if they have been close contacts with anyone who has been COVID positive, if you've had that close contact in the last 10 days. Important to know if that includes people in your household or outside of your household. And then finally, doing that visual look for your child to see if there are any visual signs that they may have a COVID exposure. So flushed cheeks, rapid breathing, or runny nose, any of those things that might be indicative of COVID. We ask you to do that before your child leaves for school. And then when they get to school, we do have our health professionals that are at the door to also do some screening of our students. And I think I am turning it back over to the Chancellor.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Elliott. Again, we just remind families that we do want them to keep us informed of any positive that may be impacting their attendance. We are still under the posture that every day counts, and we want to ensure that we have an accurate account of attendance. Anytime a student is in quarantine at the direction of DCPS, they do not need to provide any documentation. But outside of that, if there are any other absences associated with COVID, we ask that families please ensure that they inform us. And if there are any guidance changes on quarantine time period, we will continue to keep families updated on what to expect from DCPS. But again, we want families to keep us updated on any changes to attendance. We want to ensure we have accurate reporting. We'll go to the next slide. We do want to remind families that we have a number of resources available to stay informed. You recall that's one of our strategies, ensuring that we have prevention efforts, but also ensuring that we have strategies for information to keep you informed of positives and other information related to our COVID responses and cases. So to help you walk through this information, we have Jessica Jennings on our communications team that will share a little bit more about what families can learn from DCPS.
Thank you, Chancellor. As we shared with our community before the winter break, we have made some changes to how we are notifying you of cases, and that's designed to streamline and keep you informed about what's happening in your student's school. So community notices will now include the total number of cases reported to each school that day. That number is based off what has been reported by 11 a.m. And that email is sent out to our communities each evening if there is a positive case in the school. You can also now go to our DCPS Reopen Strong website to see a list by school of cases reported that day. Additionally, those community notices are sent out Sunday through Friday, with the exception of school holidays. And we encourage you to continue to use the DC Health website as the final place to go for the most accurate information about the total number of cases within the schools. DCPS reviews every case that is submitted through our COVID response team and submits that information to DC Health. The cases we report to the community are based on who is in the building while infectious. So for example, if your student had tested positive over the winter break and had not been in the building while infectious, there would not be a community notice for that case. And with that, I'll hand back to the Chancellor.
Thank you, Ms. Jennings. So on the next slide, we do want to remind families again that the best way to protect yourself and your family is to ensure that you're up to date on your vaccines. So we're reminding families there are a number of options with our health clinics for families to walk up and get a vaccine for their child or themselves. On this slide, you can see our calendar for our vaccine clinics. You can see the month of January and also the month of February as well. And we have schools all across all 8 wards in all of our communities that families can easily access. On the next slide, I do want to highlight an additional options that are now available for families. So DC has proudly opened our Covit Centers, and our Covit Centers are another place families have access to vaccinations, boosters, and also is another location families can pick up the rapid antigen-based testing kits as well. This is also a walk-up opportunity, no appointment needed. You can see some of the locations identified here on the slide. It's also important to note that the COVID centers are open. They have hours from 10 a.m. To 8 p.m. So we encourage families to take advantage of one of the clinics at the school or our new COVID centers as a place in which you can get a vaccine and easily walk up and get boosters, or for the COVID centers, also get the rapid antigen test as well. So again, we remind families, please help us in ensuring that we keep everyone safe and keep our schools in operations by ensuring you're up to date on your vaccinations. I believe that is all of the information we have to share this evening. We're going to transition at this time, I believe, into our questions.
Yes. So now we're going to move into our question and answer portion of the program. As a quick reminder, just want to let everybody know, if you have a question, you can press 0 now to be added into our speaker queue. Or if you're joining us via social media, you can comment your question on our Facebook and Twitter live streams using the hashtag DCHope. Our first question is going to go to Vera Rowland in Ward 7. Vera, your line is unmuted.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you? My name is Muriel Bowser, and I live in Ward 7. I'm a foster parent of 4 of my grandchildren, and I had concerns because I had got an alarming phone call about my grandson being on the basketball team. And they said that a couple of players and the coach had caught COVID, and I needed to come and get my grandson quickly. I said, okay. So moving forward, I thought about what could I think about to do to prevent something like that again. And I heard all of the things you guys said. Well, not clearly, because I can't say it was clear. I'm sitting in my car, and I have it on Bluetooth. I wasn't able to hear each and every word. So maybe I missed some things, but my concern was I called the mayor's office, the athletic department, and the DC Public Schools, asking them, for example, if a game is on, any type of game is on a Thursday, well, can they go, all the players and the coach, go to the nurse's office and be administered the free little 10, 15-minute test, swab test, to make sure that all players and coaches are fine on that day, not a day before or 2 days before, because anything can happen in between a day or 2 times. I was asking that they go to the nurse office and be administered the test that day, so that all the players that are have test results that's negative, they could go on with the coach over to the next school and play the game. And then they can have a safe, prosperous game. But from the department, no one is seen as like it's important. Well, not important. They said they already have protocols, guidelines already. So I said, well, can we put this in a guideline just on the day of, because if they give a test on a Monday or they give the kids a test on a Tuesday, but if the game is not until on a Thursday, I would want to know to make sure that everybody's fine on a Thursday.
Thank you so much, Vera. We'll allow the Chancellor to respond.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Thank you for choosing DC Public Schools. We are excited that we are able to stand up athletics again this school year for our students. But we do have some protocols to ensure that we mitigate transmission. One, all of our students, athletes must be vaccinated. If they're not vaccinated, they must have a medical or religious exemption. As stated earlier, our vaccines are the best way to ensure that our students are protected. I'll let Dr. Elliott talk a little bit more about our quarantine protocols for student athletes, but I do want to note that our current inventory of the rapid antigen-based kits allow us at this time to focus our efforts on our youngest learners and our test to return protocols after breaks currently. We are continuing to explore ways in which they can be utilized in other ways.
Thanks, Chancellor. Ma'am, thank you so much for your question. Yes, so we definitely could, or continue to evolve as the science evolves with regards to what we can do with regards to quarantining. Currently, our protocols would suggest that if students are identified as close contacts, if they are fully vaccinated, and again, to the Chancellor's point, the importance of vaccinations, even if you're identified as a close contact, if you are fully vaccinated and asymptomatic, you are not required to quarantine. And so that is why for our athletes, we do have this mandatory vaccination requirement so that we're able to keep our young people safe and still have the privilege of participating in our sports. So thank you for your question.
Thank you for that. We have a question from Alicia Dorsey in Ward 7. She wants to know, will DCPS be providing the KN95 masks to students?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I know given the recent information that has been circulated related to the Omicron variant and transmission, we are currently, like many other school districts across the nation, continue to look at masking, and we're continuing to look at KN95s and their use. But right now, their focus right now is on our adults as it relates to our KN95, but we do provide masks to students as needed as well.
Thank you, Chancellor. We have a parent who is concerned about whether or not they're administering the rapid test to their child properly, and they want to know if DCPS is considering doing trainings for parents and for students, just so they can ensure that they're doing the test properly.
So there is a video available to families, and the kits do come with instructions as well to ensure that families are following the protocols. But I'll just turn to the team to see if Dr. Elliott or Ms. Jennings want to add any additional context of how families can get more information.
You referenced what I was going to suggest, which is that we have video resources on our DCPS Reopen Strong website to help families kind of see how another person is administering that test. And we encourage you to take a look at that as a great resource for how to make sure that you're administering that test properly to your child.
Thank you for that. Another parent, Jean Thomas on Facebook, wants to know, there are students that travel to school and to extracurricular activity on buses, and they're concerned about whether or not their students are safe, or if there are any protocols around students being tested if they take public transit to and from school.
Yeah, so as relates to buses that are associated with school transportation, we do follow the same masking and other COVID protocols that we do in school. Currently, all of the public transit opportunities in the District of Columbia require masking as well. And so we would ask that all of our members of the community and residents assist us with keeping our students safe, with complying, and then we also provide masks to students as needed to ensure that they're able to participate in public transit.
Awesome. Another parent would like to know whether or not it would be possible for the rapid antigen test to be sent home with the student before they go on a break, rather than them having to go to a library or a testing site to pick up a test.
That is a great question. We didn't have the kits in our inventory in December before winter break, so we didn't have the opportunity to distribute prior to. However, that is certainly a consideration and something that we're thinking about of how we would distribute kits. We would ask our families, though, to ensure that we hold on to them because if we distribute those kits on a Friday and students are away and out of school for a week, we do ask that the test be administered 24 hours before students return to school. So something is possible, and as closer we get to the February recess, we'll share the specifics about what families should expect.
Thank you for that. Betty Mary would like to know, or would like clarity on which school-age students are able to get vaccinated and which school-age students are able to be tested.
So I'll turn to Dr. Elliott, who can give more context, but we do have the vaccine available for students that are age 5 and older. And there's a spectrum of age levels when the booster is also available. But Dr. Elliott can give specifics on that, and then also our testing regimen.
Yes, thank you, Chancellor. And I'll just go straight into testing. So currently, our mandatory testing is required for pre-K students only, and we intentionally focused on that group because that is a group that is not eligible for the vaccines. These are pre-K 3 and pre-K 4 students. So it is mandated that they participate in the weekly testing in order to be able to attend schools. We have additionally offered to our kindergarten families access to those weekly tests. It is not mandatory that they test, but we do provide that, again, because, there's sometimes that you have some students in the pre-K that also may not be yet vaccine eligible. So those are the young people that actually have access to those antigen tests on a weekly basis. In addition to that, if we think about our asymptomatic testing, so asymptomatic testing, we're testing 20% of our students on site on a weekly basis. This is a PCR test. All students actually have access to that to participate. And if you, I'll just emphasize that that is a program that families had to opt out of if they did not want to participate. And so if you did not opt out your student, it could be randomly selected to participate in the asymptomatic testing that happens on a weekly basis. We also have at our school symptomatic testing. So this is a student that has arrived at school and it starts to exhibit COVID symptoms during the day. They would be escorted to a health isolation room by one of our medical trained staff. And on our end would come and do a health assessment, and then based on that assessment, if that young person, we have permission from family for that young person to be tested, they would be administered the symptomatic COVID testing. And so we have a number of testing regimens, and all students, that families have given permission or not opted out of, again, the asymptomatic program. You have an opportunity to participate, and that's one of the key strategies that we use to help keep our schools safe.
And I will add to that in addition to the school resources, just another reminder for our Covit centers across the city for all of the great resources that are available for DC residents to access both PCR and rapid antigen testing to continue to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe.
Thank you for that. Our next question is going to go back to the phone lines. And excuse me if I mispronounce your name. We have in Ward 1 a parent named Mildetta Greeley. Your line is unmuted.
Yes, hello. How y'all doing today? I'm a parent of a 9-year-old. She's in the 3rd grade, and since school has opened back up, this is like the 3rd or 4th time that they had to close the school down because either a teacher has caught COVID or a student has caught COVID. So my main concern is, I feel like the school, Truesdale, off the Italy Avenue, Northwest, I think that they need to, I think they need to be one of the schools that need to do quarantining because I feel like the teachers are they're not being tested like they're supposed to, and they're not, enforcing wearing the mask, and the kids being tested like they're supposed to. Because my daughter, they said they tested her, and then she wasn't on the list for quarantining, but I tested her at home, and she has COVID now. I mean, that's a little scary because I had it, and I was hospitalized. And she has asthma also. And her name is Jada Brooks. She's in 3rd grade. I just feel like the teachers are not, enforcing wearing masks, and they're not doing the testing like they're supposed to.
Thank you for that. We're going to allow the Chancellor to respond.
Yeah, thank you, and I hope you and your family are well. We appreciate the concerns that you're raising about the safety and the well-being of your family and other DCPS students and staff. We have established a hotline in which you can report any concerns related to non-compliance with any of our COVID protocols. So we would ask that you report that anytime that you see something that is out of order. But we do quarantine students based on their close contact status. There are scenarios in which for health and safety or for continuity of educational operations, we do have situational virtual where we do transition classrooms or schools to virtual. But we continue to monitor each school's transmission and positivity to make those determinations.
Thank you, Chancellor. We're going to go to Teresa Kelly in Ward 8. Your line is unmuted, Teresa.
Yes. Hello. I'd like to ask a question about the safety of teachers and other students. How safe are teachers and other students if it seems to be optional for students to wear masks?
So I want to be clear that masking is not optional. That is a requirement. Is any campus in DCPS, if you're on campus, you must be masked. And that is one of the many layers that we have to keep students and staff safe. But we do have a very rich layered approach, which includes enhancements to our HVAC systems. We've invested over $20 million in ensuring that our HVAC systems help mitigate transmission. We have required face coverings and the masking. There's additional enhanced cleaning. And we have the screening and testing protocols that we've referenced this evening as well. So we believe the combination of all of these layered approaches create a safe environment for our students and staff.
Thank you, Chancellor. We're going to go to Christine Santiago in Ward 1. Christine, your line is unmuted.
Hi, thank you for your time tonight. I have just a few quick questions, concerns. So I have 2 kids who go to DCPS school in Ward 1. We're really concerned about the fact that our teachers and staff are being asked to handle a lot of things related to COVID when there was a promise kind of from the mayor to help provide head count, et cetera. It's killing, hopefully not literally killing the teachers, but the burden that it's putting on them is not fair. There's concern about the safety for the children. That's my really first concern. Just secondly, I think if we can get tests in people's hands, that would make it better for people to return safely to school if we know before they go to school that they are negative. at that point in time. And then thirdly, I just want to note that we received this notice of this call an hour and 15 minutes, I think, before it was happening. And luckily, we were able to kind of juggle childcare stuff to be on. But if the city is really invested in helping parents, be invested as part of this solution, whatever, I think that we should do a better job communicating, and we're happy to help. But thank you. It's a struggle, and we love our teachers and our school, and they're doing their best, but whatever we can do to make it better. So sorry, that was long. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your concerns. We certainly are very proud and grateful of the work of our educators, our staff who work diligently alongside our central services team to keep our schools open and to follow and uplift the health and safety protocols that we've just mentioned. And so we will continue to utilize every resource possible to support staff and keeping our schools safe. We do continue to enhance our communications tools, and we want to ensure families are well aware of the resources we have to offer and when we have these types of sessions. So I want to turn back to Ms. Jennings, who can share a little bit more about how we share information for our town halls and how families can continue to get information from us.
Thank you, Chancellor, and thank you for the question and the feedback. Our engagement team has announced the dates for this, which will be a kind of monthly series of town halls. So we will have that available on our website and on our social media, so families can continue to follow along. I'm glad you received tonight's text message reminder about this. We do look to promote, whether we are communicating about an upcoming town hall or a policy change, on our website, on our social media. So I encourage everyone to follow along and keep an eye out for those emails and for those text message reminders.
Thank you for that. And one last question for this evening. We have a parent with the last name of Carnegie, and they're wanting to know what is the protocol regarding field trips going forward for the rest of the semester. Are they going to be canceled, or is there any possibility of field trips returning?
So we have had field trips. We do monitor the type of field trips that families have access to. We have not had field trips this year where there is extensive travel outside of the region for health and safety reasons. But I'll turn it over to Dr. Elliott to see if there's any additional context you'd like to provide as relates to field trips.
Thank you, Chancellor. We are continuing to assess those situations on an individual basis with our schools. Again, we want to, first of all, we put the safety of our students and staff first. And so we want to be sure that, anytime students or staff are moving into locations that may not have all the mitigation factors that we have in place in our school, that we really understand if there are any associated risks. So it's really a case-by-case basis. We are all hopeful that, eventually COVID will be behind us, but as we continue to really want to be sure we're doing all that we can to prevent the spread and risk to our students, we really are having to be pretty tight on those field trips to ensure that they are educationally necessary if we in fact have students leaving campus for those. So we'll continue to evaluate.
Right, and it looks like we've gotten through all of our questions for this evening. I just want to turn it over to the Chancellor to close us out.
Again, I just want to remind everyone that the best and most important strategy that we all can leverage is the power of the vaccine. And we know that this is important for protecting ourselves and our loved ones. Families want to learn more about vaccine and the vaccine for young people. We have a town hall in partnership with Howard University at 6 p.m. So we're just reminding families that this is another resource available to get more information, specifically for vaccinations for young women and girls. We also want to remind everyone that our Covit Centers are a great resource for both vaccinations, boosters, and our rapid antigen-based kits. And so we'll remind the families that that is available, and the hours are from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. We're really grateful for our parents for assisting with all of our testing protocols. And again, we can't say enough about our staff who continues to work diligently to support our students. So thank you.